Hey, Christina. So thanks for getting this in so early. That's awesome. And I was looking at your exposures, and I was noticing what you noticed as well is something unexpected, which is that your and a lot of your first exposures, your initial exposures, or that you shot earlier before the sun was setting, that the reflective is more accurate. It's a better exposure than the incident, which is surprising. Typically in this exercise, we expect the student to find that the incident reading is far more accurate than the reflective. However, I could explain why this happened to you. Well, I can explain partially why, and then theoretically, the rest of my answer will be theoretical. Because I wasn't there when you were using your light meter, so I don't know where you were placing it in the scene. But anyway, so this is incident, and this is a good exposure. And then here is incident. This is a good exposure. Here's reflective. I would say this is a little overexposed, which is surprising. We would expect reflective to give us an underexposure. Here's incident. This is a good exposure. Here's reflective. Again, it's a little overexposed, which is not what I would expect. And then here's reflective. I would say this is a pretty good exposure for the scene. It's the same exposure. No, it's not the same exposure as this, is it, huh? Just a little bit different. It's not a significant difference between f14 and f13. I mean, that's like a third of a stop. So that's, what, a third of twice as much light. I'm not going to do that in my head, but that's not huge, right? Reflective, good exposure. Reflective, good exposure. And then, so anyway, so here's what I think was going on. I think that this whole area, like not charcoal, the mulch, the tree and the fence here is probably what you were pointing your meter at when you were in reflective mode. And this whole area has the relative value of being about 18% gray. It's about medium gray. There's everything in here, no matter what color it is roughly 18% gray. So it turns out, when you were using your meter in reflective mode, that you had the perfect target, right? Because, of course, in reflective mode, your meter is going to give you exposure settings that will yield a medium gray out of whatever you're pointing it to. And you happen to be pointing it at something that's medium gray, so that's perfect. So that worked out beautifully for you. And then in incident mode, I think that maybe what might have been happening and why you weren't getting as accurate exposures in incident mode, because we can see here this is overexposed and this is incident. This is a bit overexposed relative to this one, and this is incident. This is reflective, and that's definitely overexposed. But anyways, I see two very different lighting situations, especially when I have the close-up shots that you gave us at the beginning. You've got shade of the tree and the fence, and then you've got sun. And it looks like it was maybe like mostly sunny, but a little bit hazy overcast, and so your lighting conditions might have changed in between when you took your meter reading and when you actually took the shot. However, from your write-up, it seems that you were savvy to that, so you would have remetered. But the other thing that could have been happening is when you're in incident mode, of course, you need to place your meter in the type of light that you intend to shoot in, in the type of light that you want to meter for. And because here you have two very different types of light. You've got the shade of the tree and the shade of the fence, and then you've also got just the sunlight that's not being impeded by anything. So what you would have needed to do in incident mode is meter both the shade and the light, and then take an average of the two to get a really accurate incident metering. And then so when you're shooting out in the landscape, big photographer's tip here, incident is going to be more accurate for you than relative because it's difficult to find things with the local value of medium gray. So you would use your meter in incident. However, you would want to make sure that you take meter readings of all the different types of light that you've got, and either prioritize one above all the others and shoot for that type of light, or take an average, get all your different exposure settings for the different types of light, and then just kind of pick an average exposure value that would give you the results you want. Because I think what was going on here and why you had less accurate results in incident was because you were metering in just one or the other, in just the shade or just the sunlight. And so you were prioritizing one type of light over the other instead of averaging. And then in reflective, you happened to be pointing it at something that was perfectly medium gray. So you got better results that way. And that is the opposite of what we expect to see in this assignment. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And then, so you did a great job, though. Really thorough job here. And so I have only one thing to pick on you about. And it's like a sad thing for me to pick on you about, because you gave me too many final images. which you'd think I wouldn't complain about because they're all really good, and you're like, hey, I have 8 awesome images. But it's important as a budding professional to edit yourself. And when your client says, I want 4 best images, they don't mean give me more than that so that I can decide which 4 are the best. They mean you decide what your 4 best images are and give them to me because I do not have time to go through extra images. Does that make sense? But I bet what was going on here is you were giving me your 4 best images of each set. But in this case, we literally meant just give me your 4 best images. And so I'm only pointing that out so that in the future you know we're pretending to be the client and we don't want extra stuff to look at. We only want exactly what we ask for. But I won't take off for that this time. In the future I might. It's unlikely though. Anyways, great job on this assignment. Looks like you really have a good sense of how to use your meter. And so I look forward to seeing you in the next assignment. Thanks, Christina.